Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of The Standard is a Standard. I'm Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. My gosh, it feels like I've seen you all every night or been talking to you all every night because this damn short week, but here we are again. It's Wednesday. That's the night for The Standard is a Standard, the Behind the Steel Curtain flagship podcast, but no Lance Williams tonight, folks. Lance is not feeling well. I don't know if his tummy hurts or if he has the sniffles, but he's under the weather. He's not with us, so went to the bullpen, called in the old faithful, called up Chris Carter of DKPittsburghSports.com, said, hey, any chance you're available this afternoon, evening? He said, absolutely. Chris, what's going on? How are you?
I'm all right, Jeff. Always glad to be back on the show, man. I know Lance sometimes comes down with the sniffles or the sniffles or whatever you want to call them, but you know, if I got time, I'm going to be able to come over and get back with my buddies here behind the steel curtain.
Absolutely. And for those that might not know, Chris used to work with me at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. He was our film guy. He was kind of like my number two for a while until he jettisoned off and went to the big leagues. But hey, I'm proud of him. He's doing good work over there. Let's get right to it, Chris.
Yeah.
Big win for the Steelers last week. Huge win. I want to, the thing is, we just did our preview show last night. Brian Anthony Davis and I did. And we really kind of broke down the upcoming game. I want to know, though, from you watch so much film, and I know you watch more film than myself, Lance, probably combined. Is there anything that you noticed in the Week 9 win over the Baltimore Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium that the Steelers were doing that maybe they hadn't been doing prior to that, or that could definitely equate to success on Thursday night against the Panthers?
I'll tell you what they are doing a lot better throughout the season. I don't think it necessarily started in the Ravens game, but they're playing their gaps extremely well, and they're tackling in space so very well. And they're flowing to the ball. They're winning in those spots. Jeff, that is something that has plagued this team for years. And even when they've had like decent years defensively, even like last year they finished top 10 in a lot of major defensive categories, but still you saw in key moments, there would be times like the last Ravens game, you saw Alex Collins just running through gaps and gashing them for 20-yard gains at times. And you haven't seen that. You really didn't see that against the Ravens in this last game. And a lot of that is because they're winning those battles out in space. They're flowing to the ball very nicely, getting in position, even when it's not necessarily their guy. And that's what I've been working on. I calculate every week in our War Room series that I put together, after the game, and it usually comes out the Tuesday after the Sunday games. But I do what's called the whiff chart, and I calculate every missed tackle, every time a person had a chance to make a tackle, what their snap count was. And I got to tell you, looking at these numbers, because Pro Football Focus last year did a study, and they ranked Steelers, I think, next to last in their tackle percentage. But you're looking at this, they don't miss nearly as many tackles. A lot of people, Jeff, every week you'll hear, like whenever the Steelers lose, they miss too many tackles. And that has not really been the case this year. Their highest culprit of missed tackles right now is Joe Hayden with 7. And that's 7 missed tackles in 460 snaps. And he has 28 tackles in the season. But like their leading tackler is John Bostic with 48. He's only missed 2 tackles all season. These guys, they're getting in space. They're putting guys down. And a lot of that has to do because they are working well as a team, and they know how to trust each other, and they know how to keep their eyes open and their heads on the swivel, because as soon as they see a ball coming or they see where the play is going, they're all flying to the spot, getting in position and not overplaying their hand. That's what they did really well against the Ravens. And honestly, that's the key of beating the Panthers. Christian McCaffrey ranks 10th in yards after the catch in the NFL right now. And he's a huge reason why Cam Newton's completion percentage is so high right now, and why the Carolina Panthers offense is going to be a threat. But if the Steelers are able to take away those underneath passes, tackle the ball, make sure they limit them they limit the yards after catch, that's going to put the Panthers in a lot tougher situations, and that's when you'll see Cam Newton be uncomfortable about where he is.
And, one of the questions that I have as I think about, I'm listening to what you're saying, is I immediately think that there's a lot of defensive turnover on the coaching staff this season. Yeah. With Dunbar taking over on the defensive line. Now, Coach Mitch is still there, but he's more of an assistant coach. We have new secondary coach. Is there anything you've noticed on the film, or maybe from being at training camp and being up close and personal, or maybe even talking to players in the locker room, that maybe these coaches are doing differently that is paying dividends on the field?
One thing that I can tell you about the Steelers playing differently may not necessarily be something that they're talking about or that they've really, at least admitted to, but they're using Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt as like the battering rams of this defense. I wrote an article about that a few weeks ago, but so many times these guys are taking on double teams and they're opening up the holes for the Mike Hiltons and the Vince Williams and the John Bostics to be comfortable, trust their eyes, and be able to play in the hole without worrying about a lineman getting up to their level. Because Stephon Tuitt, when he gets double teamed, he's usually taking on both of those guys and not being moved off the ball. Very rarely will you see him or Hayward put on roller skates and be 5 yards up the field, which allows for so much more space for the running backs to work and allows for those linemen to go to the second level and get the linebackers and the safeties and the cornerbacks. That's something that I think has been – I can't say that Dunbar has really, made that an emphasis, but I do think that that's a change because you're not seeing Stephon Tuitt and Cam Hayward with those ridiculous sack numbers right now. I think you're seeing more of them being able to take on those double teams, and that's allowing other people to win for them. As far as Bradley, I think that Bradley, he's an old school guy, and Carnell Lake, I don't think he was a bad secondary coach. But I think what Bradley's been able to do is he's been able to help Tomlin, put the major emphasis in tackling the ball and making sure that they get the player down as soon as he catches it. That's always been a theme of Tomlin's, but especially in this training camp, because this is my second training camp where I've been at, for several days on end. And I can tell you, when I went to the 2017 training camp, they focused on tackling, but in this year's training camp, Jeff, they were on it every single day. They were making sure, get the man down, be on him, be in position. Even when they didn't have pads on, he wanted you. Mike Tomlin wanted you in your spot, and I think those have really translated into success for this defense because they're not making crazy turnovers all over the place, Jeff, but they are stopping ball carriers when they get the ball. They're forcing teams to have to be consistent on offense. And you see in this 4-game win streak, they're not 3-and-outing you every time, but they're forcing you. Hey, if you're going to score on us, you're either going to get a big turnover, or you're going to have to get great field position. But very, very few times does an offense start in their own, at their own 20 and walk down the field and score on this defense.
Yeah, I think the one thing that fans need to realize, and a lot of times people always ask, well, what's the difference? They couldn't tackle early in the season. Sometimes it takes time.
Yeah.
And you look at the offensive side of the ball. I said this, I was doing a radio spot from someone, and they asked, what's the big change in the Steelers since they're 1-2-1 start? I said, well, they started to figure it out. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger played 2 series in the preseason. That's it. 2. Yeah. You can't. The guy's a veteran and he's tremendous, but you can't expect anyone to go out there and just, throw him out there on the week 1 and pick up where he left off last year. Now, maybe that's a criticism of how they handle their preseason snaps, but at the same time, if he gets injured during the preseason, what would hit the fan? That's for sure.
Right.
So, let's talk about the Panthers for a second before we go into our true or false segment, which will be tailored around the upcoming game on Thursday Night Football. If you were to say, give me one offensive and one defensive Steelers factor that you think is going to be important for them to win the game on Thursday night, what do you think that's going to be? Think about it for a second, because, offensively, what's that one catalyst that they have to do? Defensively, same thing. What do you think? You can go either one first, doesn't matter.
Offensively, I'm going with establishing the passing game on play action. I think the Panthers are an aggressive run defense. They're a decent run defense, and they're going to try and stop the run early. They're going to try and stop James Conner from getting into his rhythm. They're going to try and stop the Steelers' offensive line from getting out and pulling and being aggressive. The Steelers, they're going to need to impose their wills on these guys eventually, but they got to make these guys think. The Panthers are an aggressive defense. They will flow to the ball. If they get hit with a few play actions that rip them off for 15, 20-yard chunks, they'll start to get on their heels a little bit, and then they'll have to start thinking. And that's when you'll start seeing more and more of that aggressiveness start to chip away, because they're like, okay, well, I can't sell out to stop that because Vance McDonald might kill us over the top, or Juju Smith-Schuster might come, hit a shallow cross, and we might not have guys there to stop him. I think that'll be the key to opening it up. But ultimately, the whole point of that will be so that the Steelers can rely on the run game late, because I think if they're able to get that going and have Connor building up steam late, get this Panthers defense tired, force them to have to run with you and have them running all over the field, stretch them out. I think that's what's going to get them tired and get the Steelers more chances to move the ball and win those third downs, because the Panthers, they're really good when they're in their hole, sort of like when they're comfortable, when they're in their spot and they're not being forced to do so many different things. But when you force them out of their element and you force them to cover the field, as Randy Fichtner has done so well, his horizontal offense has been very effective in forcing defenses to cover so many different things and have to think a whole lot. That's why I think the Steelers will win. But I think, again, a lot of that comes from being in play action.
Yeah, and you saw that horizontal offense on display, especially on third downs against Baltimore. Whether it was Juju, Antonio Brown, sometimes it was James Conner, it looked like they were literally guessing and trying to use guys who's got him, and then you have a wide open receiver, and it worked. What do you think about defensively? What do you think the Steelers have to do against Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey, Olsen and company? It sounds like a law firm.
Right, it does. Actually, that would be a pretty good law firm name. Nelson, of course. But look at the Panthers offense, and you see, and it's what I was talking about earlier. Cam Newton, he doesn't. You don't want him to have to throw the ball all over the field. You want him to have to be able to sort of do what the Steelers are doing: direct the offense, connect on the shorter distance throws, hurt you underneath, and then eventually, when you start to get tired of that, he'll hit you over the top with a big throw, or he'll find his a fast receiver in space. This team knows its strength is in the run game. They're the second leading rushing offense in the NFL right now, as far as yards per game. And to stop that, one, you're going to have to win your gaps up front. Don't let that offensive line impose their will. This is where that battering ram situation will come in for Hayward and Tuitt. They got to make sure that their linebackers are clean, that they're seeing the play. And when they get their shots, they got to take down McCaffrey. They cannot let him bust loose, break tackles, and create those yards after contact, because if he does, it's going to ease up the pressure on Newton. And I can tell you right now, Cam Newton, he's a guy, he's playing very well. He's been pretty consistent all season. He's not turning the ball over, and that's a huge part of his offense. But you look at their passing splits when it comes to how well they succeed on third down. When they're third, when it's third or fourth down, and right with 1 or 2, he's 8 of 10. He's very good. He's able to get the ball out quickly. But when you start getting to that 3 to 8 yard range, that drops down to about 56%. But when you get him to 9 and 10 yards back, that's when you start to see more of the problems. He's 8 of 17 for 92 yards. He does have 2 touchdowns. He's thrown a pick. He's also taken 2 sacks. That's where you'll start to see him falter, and Steelers have to force more of those situations. But it all starts with tackling underneath, making sure that those underneath passes that he loves to go to don't break for more yards, especially Curtis Samuel and the faster guys that they're going to want to put on the field.
Yeah, and so it's really crazy when you just look at rankings and averages for these two teams, how eerily similar they are.
Yes.
Everything offensively, defensively, look it up. It's really crazy. And I thought Jim Wexell, Steel City Insider, put it best, where he said on Twitter today, he said, these two teams, this matchup is so evenly matched and could be such a good game. There's no way it should happen on 3 days rest. But here they are. They're preparing on short rest. But I've always felt that the home team gets the slight advantage considering the fact they don't have to travel. And Pittsburgh actually has some pretty decent numbers on Thursday Night Football, especially at home. And we're going to have a number, one of our guys, Dave Schofield, I'm going to have his article run tomorrow morning, I think. Yeah. And it's all about Thursday night numbers for Carolina and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Really interesting stuff from Ben Roethlisberger's time with the Steelers and so forth. But let's get to true or false, Lance. I'm sorry.
Lance.
I'm reading. Chris, I'm reading Lance because Lance, although he is sick, I got to give him credit. He was a kind of a producer for us tonight. He's homesick. He sent us a lot of true or false questions or statements for us to have on the show. So, are you ready for this true or false installment?
No, but let's do it anyway.
Okay, very good. First one, true or false, James Conner will rush for over 100 yards for what, the 5th straight game?
I'm going to say false. I think he's going to get around 80 to 90. I don't think that they'll need him as much to gain the 100 yards. I think that the Panthers are going to be able to slow him up, but I can see him getting 80 to 90 yards rushing, coming up just short. He'll have a good game, but not 100.
I agree. I think that he'll go over 100 total scrimmage yards, but definitely not rushing. I think that teams are going to start selling out to stop him.
Yeah.
Because he is that dynamic right now. And so they're going to start loading the box, and that's when other players go off. And that's how the Pittsburgh Steelers thrive. Let's go to the next one. The Steelers will win the time of possession battle. True or false?
True. I do think that they're going to be able to move the ball. I have started to have a lot more respect every week I've not started to. I've continued to have more respect every week for Randy Fichtner's offense because he's able to help Ben Roethlisberger extend drives. He doesn't force him to throw 40 yards downfield in one-on-one coverage situations. He says, "Hey, take these smarter throws." It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter how far you throw it if this guy is able to run that far after he catches the ball. And that's something that I've seen pretty consistently from this offense. I think that that's going to be the key to being successful and maintaining the time of possession.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see the evolution of the Steelers offense, and it goes from the big play, deep threat, chucking it downfield to calculated. I think that's a really good word. I think you use that as to how the approach is for the Steelers offense. It's very calculated, and so that is a really good way. I think they do win the time of possession battle again. I think they convert well on third downs, and that's going to be key. Red zone conversions are also going to be key. We'll get to that later.
Yes.
But this also ties into, Ben Roethlisberger will throw for over 300 yards. True or false?
True. I think that's where this team is going to excel in this game. I think that he's going to have himself a night. I do think that Eric Reed is helping this Panthers secondary, but I don't think that they're going to have enough to stand up to Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster. And I think that when that starts to happen, that's going to get more yards for Vance McDonald. Maybe some Jesse James is going to get in there. But I think this offense is going to, especially if they come out with those play action passes, Jeff, early, I think that they're going to hurt defenses. And then eventually in that second half, you're going to start to see them sort of guess in certain ways, and that'll give Ben Roethlisberger the chance to complete, but a lot more passes and read what they're doing and take away what they don't, or go after what they're giving up. So I'm saying over 300 yards passing simply because they're at home. This is Thursday Night Football. They're on a roll, and I think that Ben Roethlisberger has been waiting for a game like this.
And this is the 22nd ranked pass defense coming into Heinz Field.
Yep.
It is not their forte. I think that the Steelers, like you said, are due for a big game like this. There's already been talk about the no huddle. If you watch the video from the locker room, whether you're in there or not, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Ben Roethlisberger, they're all talking about the no huddle offense, which typically means more throws than runs. So keep that in mind as well. Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. The defense will sack Cam Newton 3 times or more. True or false?
I say true because I think that Cam Newton is going to hold the ball a little bit. I think the Steelers, especially because they're healthy, they got LJ Fort, they got Mike Hilton. I think that they're going to be successful in forcing some third and longs. They're going to take away the easier reads for Newton, and he's a guy that he likes to try and extend the play, make things happen. He's a big guy. He's going to be tough to bring down. He always is. But I think they're going to start getting to him. And especially in that second half, I think they're going to, especially if the Steelers' offense can put pressure on the Panthers. I do think the Steelers are going to get some early stops against these guys. But if they get that 14-point, 17-point lead, you're going to start to see the Panthers offense get a little desperate in the third quarter. And then that's when you're going to start seeing Cam Newton hold on to the ball a little bit. Then you're going to see TJ Watt coming off the edge, Cam Hayward coming up the middle, and getting more opportunities to sack the quarterback.
If the statement is 3 times or more, I'm going to say push. I think they'll get 3. And I've always been one that whenever they play Cam Newton or whenever I watch Cam Newton, I've always felt that it's more based on just getting to him. You don't have to sack him all the time. Hit him. I think back to when they played down in Carolina. That might have been 2014.
Yes.
And man, Kiesel was in on that game, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was when he had just come back. And they were just hitting him early and often. They didn't have a ton of sacks, I don't think, that game, but it rattles him. He doesn't like getting hit. He's not one of those quarterbacks that can just kind of shake it off. It sometimes sends him into a downward spiral. They need to get to him, but I'm going to say push. I think they finished with 3 sacks on the day. Now, next one, the Carolina Panthers are actually ranked 4th in the NFL in terms of the giveaway-takeaway ratio at +8. The Pittsburgh Steelers are the only team with a winning record that is on the negative side of that. However, in this game, true or false, the Steelers will win the turnover battle.
That's a tough one. I'm gonna go true. They're gonna win the turnover battle because I can see a few times I can see a few fumbles coming up in this game. I think you're gonna see some moments like the Tampa Bay game where they kind of went on not necessarily a 4 possessions in a row type of situations, but I can see a couple turnovers going their way. And I think Ben Roethlisberger, he's doing a much better job of protecting the football, as is James Conner. I think that they're going to be able to limit their turnovers. And you have to count every game because it's important. But the reason they're behind is because they turned the ball over 6 times against the Browns in Week 1. And they've definitely improved from that horrible performance. So I think they're going to be able to hold on to the ball in this game and against the Panthers. And I do think that they'll get 1 or 2 in this game, and that's why they'll be able to win the turnover battle.
You live in Pittsburgh. What is the weather forecast for Thursday night?
Let me ask my weather app. No, but it's been really nice. It's been really nice for a while. It's gonna be if it stays what it is, and according to the weather app, it will. But 47 degrees. I'm telling you, I'm at Highmark Stadium. I'm literally looking over across the river right now at Heinz Field. It's lit up. It's pretty bright right now. I was telling you when I was driving on the way over here, and the seats were lit up, and I was like, "Oh my God, is it Thursday? Am I high? What the heck is going on? Why are the stadium lights on right now?" But yeah, it's this is football weather. This is perfect autumn. It's not supposed to rain. So Heinz Field will be fine. The wind will be coming off the river, so it gets a little chilly when that happens. In the stadium. But all in all, it's good weather for football. It's good weather for passing the ball. Good weather for running the ball. I don't think it'll be a factor. It'll be a great night for fans at the stadium, and I don't think the players will have any impediments.
All right, and so let's go to the last question here for true or false, or statement, I should say, and that is the Carolina Panthers are the Steelers' toughest test to date. True or false?
False, because the Chiefs were.
Okay, so but some would say that the Chiefs' defense obviously is not that great. I think most would assume that the Panthers' defense is a little bit better, but the offense is not the caliber of the Chiefs. I could see that. Okay, I could see you saying that, but I think a lot of people think that this is a really big test. This is a really big game. If the Steelers win this game, they advance to 6-2-1. And man, is there now a lot of pressure on the Bengals as they host the Saints on Sunday in Cincinnati. If they lose that one, they drop to 5-4. There's a 2-game split, technically 2.5, between the two teams, and that's a lot of distance. And I think I can speak for everyone, including you, Chris, that say that fans of the Steelers have to hope and pray that Week 17 game against Cincinnati means absolutely nothing. That the division is already locked up, that the playoff spot is already locked up. That would be ideal. And so let me ask you this question, because you kind of answered that, and I'll let you go ahead and talk about that in a second. How many wins do you think it'll take for the Steelers to win the AFC North?
9. I don't have faith in this AFC North. down the stretch. The Ravens, they still have to play the Chiefs in the AFC West through that they have to do. I think that the Bengals are too inconsistent. I think the Steelers will definitely win more than 9 games, but I honestly, if they went 9-6-1, I think that they win this division. And maybe one of them will get to. I think one of them will get to 9-7. But if anyone, I think it would be the Bengals, because I think the Ravens are on a spiral right now. And I really think that we said this. It's funny. You and I said this years ago with the Joe Flacco contract. And we talked about how it was really impacting them. We thought it was impacting them back in 2014 and 2015 when you started to see them not continue to bring in some high caliber players to help them out. Now you're really seeing it, because they still haven't really been able to replenish. I mean, look at their receivers right now. They went out and got all these new receivers, and Willie Snead and Michael Crabtree and John Brown, and it's not a threat. And none of these guys really scare you. John Brown a little bit, but he can't be your number one. So I think 9-6-1 is enough for the Steelers to win the division, but I definitely have them winning more games this season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Now, before we get to predictions, I'm going to tease it out a little bit.
Right.
For those that might be just tuning in, or maybe maybe you're getting off work and you haven't been on your phone that much. There's Le'Veon Bell news. Okay, I'm just gonna throw it out there. There's Le'Veon Bell news. Lance, when he's on with me, I say I hate talking about the guy because he's not even on the team right now. Like, if you go to ESPN and look up his stats, there's no Steeler logo behind his head because he's technically not employed by an NFL team right now
at all.
Yet here we are, after, I don't know, Le'Veon Bell decided to go to LA Fitness in Bridgeville, I think is the location, and just show up randomly and play some fives, hoop it up with some pedestrians.
Right.
Everyone saw the photos probably on Twitter. I do have to give props to whomever took that photo and whoever captioned the caption of local rapper.
That's pretty good.
Seen playing basketball with pedestrians. That was his actual caption. I thought that was absolutely hysterical. Le'Veon Bell was playing basketball. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN actually somehow tracked down sources to say that is true. Le'Veon Bell did not look like he was very trim and slim. I'll put it that way. But then, if that's not enough, he goes onto Twitter this evening, and this is being recorded on Wednesday. And I don't even know how you get the text to flip upside down, but he sent upside down tweets saying essentially, well, I'll just read you the transcript here. This is Le'Veon Bell. Quote, "Just about everybody has an opinion on my life and worried about what I'm doing. ... Don't judge me off my decisions because maybe this isn't what you do. ... But most people don't take the time to just simply read between the lines. ... And that's clearly on them." Second tweet, "I'm not apologizing for what I believe is right for myself, family, and the rest of my peers, period. ... Also, if you're really finding the time to figure out what I'm saying, you've proved my point." Okay. This guy, I'm not even sure what to say about this guy. Seriously, that's what it is. I mean, this guy. He clearly, and I said this to you before we went on the air, I said, for someone that says he doesn't care, he surely cares. And he does care. And he reads the tweets, and I'm sure he reads the articles. I wouldn't be shocked if he's read articles from your site on DKPittsburghSports and on my site, BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, because he clearly cares what fans think, and fans are not happy. So what is your feeling on how this is going to play out? Because we know if he wants to play this year, he has to show up by Tuesday of next week. He's in Pittsburgh, clearly, from his hoopathon that he had at LA Fitness. What do you think is going to happen here?
I mean, I think he's coming in next week. I know Mark Capoli released a story about how technically he could not show up at all this year and he can still get to free agency next year. I think that there's still a big part of Le'Veon that wants to show people that he still has it, and maybe even himself that he still has it. But in the long run, when you look at his career, he's 26 right now. He'll be 27 next year. He's a guy that he's supposed to be in his prime, and I think that he has always put a big emphasis on his legacy, that he wants to see himself up there with the greats. And sometimes you look at a situation and you think, man, what could have happened if he was healthy in this situation, or what if he was available in this situation? And I think he himself is probably felt like, man, if I was available in this big moment, what could have been for my career? And I think he wants to be part of a Super Bowl run. And I think that I disagree with a lot of his decisions. I don't think some of them have been dumb. I think they've just been things that he thought would work out and they didn't. Like going up against the Steelers in a free agency battle or a holdout battle, that's never a good idea. But hey, he thought maybe because he was on another echelon that he'd be different. But at the same time, I think that he has to know that, you look back at the Steelers' history, Jeff. The last year was the first time that the Steelers had their starting running back in the playoffs to end a playoff game since they lost the Super Bowl to the Packers back in Super Bowl 45. Every other playoff game, they've had Ben Tate, they've had Fitzgerald Toussaint, they've had some other guy come in and have to finish out the playoffs, and they've lost. Now, yes, last year they lost too, but that wasn't because of Le'Veon Bell. It's because the defense was trying to figure out how to do anything without Ryan Shazier. I think that he sees that, and he has to look, if James Conner goes down, or even if he doesn't, if he comes in and he makes big plays in the playoff stretch, he doesn't need to do it right now. Like if he comes back next week, he doesn't have to be immediately active. But if he makes a couple big plays that helps the Steelers, get to a big playoff position, get a bye week, or helps them in the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl, or even in the Super Bowl, he's gonna remind everyone, yeah, I held out and I still did all of this. Imagine if I played the whole season and it was clicking full time with this offense, what could have happened? I think he's looking at that and licking his chops and saying that's how he shows everyone he still has it. Because right now, I'll tell you what, Jeff, and you can tell me what I do want to know what you think about this. You look at Whit Martindale last week with the Ravens defensive coordinator talking about how James Conner, they're doing better with him than the other guy. And then this week, Ron Rivera made a comment. I think he refused to even name Le'Veon Bell. When they talked about him, and both those coaches, that's 2 weeks in a row, opposing coaches of the Steelers have made a point to sort of mock Le'Veon Bell and sort of just take jabs at him. I think, and maybe this is too much of a conspiracy theorist of me, but I think the league's teams are looking at this situation and saying we have to snuff out this whole situation with Le'Veon Bell's holdout, because we do not want him making other players feel like this was a right decision and that he's doing anything for the players' unions or moving forward. We need to hold this leverage over the players with franchise tags in the situation. And I think that everyone's kind of happy that it's not going well for Le'Veon, because say Le'Veon Bell held out right now, Jeff, and James Conner wasn't having this supreme year, and the Steelers were hurting more, and it was obvious that they needed him back at the running back spot, this conversation would be a lot different. And I think that a lot of these teams would be it would embolden a lot of other players. Odell Beckham got paid this year, but imagine if he was in that situation, he'd be like, okay, I'm going to do what Le'Veon did. You want to tag me? Okay, I won't play. And then watch your team crumble. But I think a lot of the coaches rather around the league and the organizations in general, they're looking at this and they're hoping that the Steelers can make Le'Veon Bell look and seem unimportant.
Yeah, it's I think he's been given some really bad advice along the way.
I agree.
From his agent, could be from other players. And I'm a big Dan Patrick fan. I listen to the Dan Patrick show almost daily, and I heard an interesting interview with Maurice Jones-Drew the other day from the NFL Network. And Dan Patrick echoed a lot of what we have been saying on this show and tonight in regards to, if you're going to protect your body, why even show up? Yada, yada, yada. And Maurice Jones-Drew, he was the first one that actually gave a spin on it that made a little bit of sense. And everyone talks about how much money Bell has passed up, and it has been a lot. He's passed up more money than any other running back will make the entire year so far this season. But, it's all about guaranteed money with Bell. And Todd Gurley, I believe, got close to $45 million. He's going to want around 40 at least. And if he gets that, and let's be honest, someone's going to pay him.
Oh, yeah.
Someone will pay him. I hope fans aren't that naive that they think that he's going to somehow be blackballed by the league. No. Because he's that talented. Someone will pay him. And if they give him the $40 million, he essentially said, look, if he shows up late, then he surrendered $10 million for a total of $40 million. Would you make that trade? And Dan Patrick was like, well, yeah, I guess I would. He goes, well, that's kind of what he's doing. So that, in that respect, made it a little bit more clear as to what financially he is possibly thinking. But here's the thing that most fans are forgetting. And I know that if he were to show up and he were to play, the booing will be relentless, probably. That's my guess.
Oh, yes.
That the fans will be booing him more than you could imagine for a home team, for their own player. But at the same time, don't let the fact that he's held out this whole time cloud the fact that he's still a remarkable football player. Mm-hmm. Is he in shape? I don't know. I mean, we saw a TMZ photo and a really fuzzy photo from LA Fitness.
I don't buy those, Jeff. No. I think that those are ridiculous. Like I've talked to several people that are like, "Oh, look at that picture. He looks fat." You know what? Le'Veon Bell. I don't think you could tell how good he is from a blurry picture of him on a jet ski. Again, Pete Bomarito. Pete Bomarito is an NFL trainer. He works with all the different supreme athletes in the NFL. He compares Le'Veon Bell to Frank Gore in his work ethic because he says at all points of the year, this guy is making sure that he is in his best shape. He works extremely hard so that he's ready for an NFL season. And he's like, the way I see him work reminds me of Frank Gore. And he said the reason why Frank Gore has lasted so long as he has is because of his work ethic. Because when other running backs, when they have a big year and they take some time off and they're enjoying themselves, and that's all fine and well and dandy, Frank Gore doesn't do that. He works on his footwork. He works on his calisthenics. He makes sure he's in his best physical shape as possible. That's another reason why I said last year when Le'Veon Bell had his not quote unquote, it was a slow start last year. It wasn't for being in lack of football shape. It was because the offensive line was losing a lot of battles at the line of scrimmage. I think that if Le'Veon Bell comes back, and I do think he will this season, I think you're going to see him. I think you're going to see that he isn't that much off from what he's been in the past, because I do think he'll still be in shape and be ready to play football. But you're absolutely right. He's going to get booed, his first time on the field. I think that the only way that he would not get booed is if he, has a huge play where he reminds everyone that he's Le'Veon Bell and that, that he's this good. But to your point, Jeff, that someone will pay him. He gets to the market next year. Here are your teams with the most cap space. The Colts will have $125 million in cap space. The Jets, 106. The Bills, 91. The Browns, 86. The Raiders, 83. The Texans, 73. Those are your top 6 teams, all of which could really use a superstar running back to light up the backfield. And I do think that any of them would happily pay him $15 million to $16 million to $18 million a year to come there for 3 to 4 years and rock out with them as they try to get their team together.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, someone will pay him. But again, to bring this full circle, let's say he does show up on Monday of next week, takes his physical, everything's fine. Tuesday reports, they do the exempt list thing. That's going to be between his agent and the Steelers as to pay during that time and whether they put him on the active roster, if they keep him on the exempt list for 2 weeks, whatever the case may be. If and when he's back and he is actually capable of playing, just think of he and Connor as a 1-2 punch in the backfield. That's tremendous. I mean, Steeler fans should actually be kind of excited for that. Take the emotion out of it. look at it from a football standpoint, and you'll see that Le'Veon Bell coming back to the team is not necessarily a bad thing. And I said this on another radio show. I said, look, the players in the locker room are probably hoping that he comes back, not because Connor's not playing well, but because they're probably sick of answering questions for him. And then they can say, go ask him. He's right there. I'm done talking about him. And then they can move on. So I know that someone, it might have been Jeremy Fowler on Twitter, said that they spoke with some players, and the general consensus is they just want to know. Like, either show up or don't show up. But let's not have this thing drag out any longer than it has to. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And that's all we're going to say about that. That's really it. I mean, unless you have any comments about it.
I was just gonna say, I think the players are tired of it, but I also think they're fine with how it is. They're winning right now. They're playing well. They like James Conner. I think the players are even they're kind of like laughing about it because whereas it's annoying that people keep asking the question, but I think there was a few weeks ago where there was a practice where one day, it was like one of the Tuesdays where everyone thought Le'Veon Bell might come in. And Jeremy Fowler reported that they went to Le'Veon. The players had set up cleats in like a lunchbox in Le'Veon Bell's locker to sort of set the bait and see if people would stand around and wait for it. Now, according to what Fowler said, he said nobody fell for it, but they did think about it, like they looked at it from a distance. But I think the team's fine. I think that they're good, and I think that yes, there wouldn't be no problems. I hear a lot of times. I was on the Final Word on WPXI, the local NBC station here in Pittsburgh, with Mark Madden and John Steigerwald, and Mark Madden's been very insistent that if the Steelers, it would be horrible if he comes back. He's going to wreck the locker room, and I don't think all that's going to happen. I think the Steelers, I think that there will be some drama because it's the NFL and there's always drama even when there's not. But I think that if he comes back, he's going to be in the rotation eventually. And when he starts getting the ball and they start figuring out ways to work the offense and make sure that they're winning at the battles they need to win, I think they'll be fine, and it won't be this issue that everyone is making it out to be. I don't think that James Conner is going to start feeling, insecure about his situation. I think that these guys, they're good enough of a locker room, especially with Mike Tomlin at the helm. Everyone always complains about Mike Tomlin, but how many times have these wildfires come up and people say, "Oh, the Steelers, there's all the drama. They can't control the drama. They're all over the place. Mike Tomlin can't." Well, and all of a sudden they're 5-2-1, leading the AFC North, and pretty much, the ship has been righted. And my thing is that when many people think the ship isn't right, it often is. It's often in a very it's often just perception is that the team has been off kilter. I don't think it is nearly as bad. It never was nearly as bad as people made it out to be, even with the Antonio Brown Twitter stuff and all the other things that are going on. That's a group of focused men. They're really growing together and they work together. And I think that when Le'Veon Bell comes back, they'll survive that too. Again, I say when, as if it definitely has happened. I'll say if to correct myself. But I think that it's not nearly as big of a problem. If you're a Steelers fan out there and you hope he doesn't come back, you might be singing a different tune if James Conner, especially, and Jeff, you brought up an interesting point with the Bengals in that last game of the season. Week 17, those teams play each other. You're saying you hope it doesn't matter. If the Steelers are chasing the Patriots and the Chiefs, it most likely will matter because they'll probably be fighting to get a bye week, and they'll probably need that win to clinch a bye week. And I can just see that game playing out. And the Bengals, if they're in the playoff race or if they're not, they are the Bengals. Vontaze Burfict is probably going to be there, and they're probably going to try and take more shots at James Conner. And how many times have the Steelers lost a star player late in the season to those guys? So I think that it would be imperative if you're a Steelers fan and you're out there and you're thinking, stay away. You might want him to come back because that could be a situation where something crazy happens, and then all of a sudden the Steelers have to, might have to lean on Jalen Samuels or Stephen Ridley for the rest of this for the playoff run instead of James Conner or Le'Veon Bell. So having another talented guy in the locker room, not a bad thing. He's not the loose cannon. that will completely destroy the locker room, as some people will suggest.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you what. Let's leave this situation in the past for now. There's going to
Yeah,
be more news on it this weekend. What is your prediction for the Thursday night game before we get to some questions from our live YouTube fans?
I think, what was I? I did a whole prediction thing on DK Pittsburgh Sports. I think I said 26-17.
Okay.
26-17. I think the Steelers, they get 3 touchdowns, 2 field goals, and they miss an extra point. Is that right? No. Yeah, that's the right thing. They'll miss an extra point. But I think the offense will do enough, and the defense they'll allow 1 score from Cam Newton, but I think that they'll be able to force a lot of field goals against this offense.
I said 34-26 Pittsburgh. I think it's going to be a little bit higher scoring. Oftentimes, I feel like the offense is a little bit ahead of the game when it comes to these short weeks, and the defense is typically maybe a little tired, lagging. They're not as prepared as they usually are. I do think that both teams are going to move the ball. I think the Steelers' defense 18 points or less streak gets broken, yet the winning streak continues. I said 34-26, and the spread is now 4 points. By the way, it went down. So there you have it. You ready for some questions here, Chris?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's see here. Hunter or Washington for the Steelers' third wide receiver? That's from our friend Snowman.
I think they got to stick with Washington just because I think that he has to learn this offense, and that if he does, he's going to be better. Hunter does the small things right. If you get a chance, if you want to go back and watch tape and you like watching games, watch the Antonio Brown touchdown against the Ravens. You'll see how he made 2 guys miss. One of those guys was the guy that was in front of James Washington. He didn't really get to finish his block. He sort of turned around, looked a little clueless for a little bit. Those are the little things he still doesn't have in his game. Whereas Justin Hunter, there's twice that he's now set up touchdowns for Antonio Brown because of getting himself in the right position and setting up the sort of rub route that he does. That's where Justin Hunter will be more effective. I think that James Washington, if he continues to play, he'll learn those things, but I think he'll also be a better receiver running down the field.
Yeah, I agree with Washington. I think he has more upside. Let's go to the next question. How long do you think the Steelers can keep their winning streak going?
I think that it would go until they play the Saints. I really like the way the Saints are playing football right now. Drew Brees, he's always been one of my favorite players to study, and they're doing so many right things on offense. They have weapons all over the field. I think the Steelers, and that's a little ways off. The Steelers got to play the Jaguars after the Panthers game. I think they got the Broncos after that. And then they got the Raiders. But then when you get to that Saints game, I think that's where, especially if they can win this Thursday night against the Panthers, then I think that they could go on a tear against these teams that are still struggling and trying to right their own ships. And then that'll make a game of the week sort of moment, or a game of the year sort of moment, when they play the Saints, and maybe even a Super Bowl preview.
Yeah, they have some tough games coming up for sure with all those softer games that you mentioned at Denver. That's not really a soft game, considering it's a tough place to play. At Oakland, we know even though Oakland's awful, they never play well there.
Right.
Yeah, and then you have tough games. The Chargers come to Heinz Field. They have to go down to New Orleans. The Patriots come to Heinz Field. The Cincinnati Bengals come to Heinz Field. So definitely some tough games coming up, but I could see them going on a run. Absolutely. Let's see here. Why doesn't Cameron Sutton get some chances or some repetitions at outside cornerback play? In other words, why is it all Cody Sensabaugh?
I think because Cody's been in position a lot. Cody Sensabaugh isn't your typical really good cornerback that makes the plays and the balls that you want, but he's also not out of position. He's really settled in out there. I think last year he got a little jumpy on underneath routes, and I think he's really taken to just being in position, doing the traditional things that the outside cornerback is supposed to do. And that's what they really need. They don't need someone that's Jalen Ramsey necessarily. And I think Cameron Sutton, he's a guy they want in the middle of the field, covering the slot cornerbacks or covering the slot options, helping against the run, letting him do it out there. I think Sutton could be good on the outside, but I think right now the Steelers are sort of playing with the hot hand of Cody Sensabaugh. Not that it's really hot per se, but I do think that that he's doing well enough to say that, look, we're not getting scorched with him out there. Let's keep him out there until something bad happens. And then if it does, then we'll consider, Cameron Sutton or maybe Artie Burns will get another shot someday.
All right, let's go to the next one. Do you think the Steelers secondary can handle the Panthers receivers in man coverage, which will allow them to put extra pressure on Cam Newton, or potentially have a spy on Cam Newton?
Yes, I think the Steelers have shown that their secondary can run a lot this year. That's why you look at their safeties, Jeff, and the only guy that's left from last year is Sean Davis and Jordan Dangerfield, of course, but he doesn't see the field. But Morgan Burnett is going to be running with some of those guys in the middle. Morgan Burnett he'll probably stick with the tight end. I meant to say Terrell Edmonds will be running with those guys over the middle. Mike Hilton is just a beast. I know everyone talks about Joe Hayden being the MVP of this defense so far. I argue that Mike Hilton is just as valuable because of what he does all over the field. That pass defense he had on, I think it was Mark Andrews, the tight end for the Ravens. Mark Andrews is 6'5". Mike Hilton, I think, is 5'9". That's what, like 6-7 inches. I know my math sucks, but it's but that I remember looking at that and saying, how in the world does he win that jump ball situation with Andrews? It's because he's always in position, and I think that they can run with these Panthers receivers. I know they got Torrey Smith, and he's beaten the Steelers in the past with Joe Flacco, but I think that I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem.
Well, good news is that Torrey Smith was ruled out for this game with an injury, so they don't even have to.
That's even worse for the Panthers.
Don't even have to worry about that guy. Don't need any more Ravens in that stadium. All right, let's hear. We have a couple more. Do you think Artie Burns gets any playing time this week? He has been shut out the last 2 weeks, and we know he got benched during the Cleveland game. But do you think that he sees any time this week?
Nah, I think that the Steelers are making their point. They're like, look, Sensabaugh continues to play. I don't think Cam Newton's going to be the guy to light people up outside the hash marks. That's when you're going to see Cody Sensabaugh start to get tested, when they start playing better quarterbacks. And the thing is, that might not happen for quite a few weeks. But I think that Cody Sensabaugh is going to play all of this game. He's good at playing. I think he's also very quick when it comes to playing against running quarterbacks. We saw that a little bit last year when he had the interception on Marcus Mariota. So I think he's going to get all the snaps in this game unless he gets hurt or the Steelers are so far up. Maybe then they say, hey, let's give Artie Burns a shot. But no, I don't think that he's out there until they feel like we're not getting enough out of Cody Sensabaugh.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So I had someone actually ask in the chat how long I have been a Steeler fan. As long as I can remember. It was just the way I was raised. I'm a Pittsburgh fan. It's the way I always preface that. When I see people wearing Steelers stuff, I say, are you a Pittsburgh fan or are you a Steeler fan? Because Pittsburgh fans know that right now the Pens are playing the Caps and it's tied 1-1 after 2, and I'm doing this show. So there you
I know, man. Listen, y'all don't understand. Jeff, I would have these conversations with Jeff whenever they were playing the Capitals, and he would just love it when he could go to work and just look at all the Capitals fans. And I know that last year had to be real rough because the Capitals finally got over on the Penguins, and they finally won a title. And, oh, man. But, Jeff, you've had plenty of happy days as a Penguins fan whenever they had to play the Capitals.
Oh, well, don't think that I didn't walk into work today wearing this Steelers shirt, a Steelers sweatshirt, and I was just walking around. It didn't matter who it was. They like the Ravens. They got a piece of it because you know what? I heard it after week 4. So there you go. So CC, I appreciate the time. Do you have any final comments that you have, you want to bestow upon the listeners out there, or maybe pump your own site? I always give you a chance to do that.
Well, of course, I'll pump my own site. I'm going to bring up a talking point that I have brought up before. And it's because I've continued to hear it. Praise of something that happened in this last Ravens game that I think is something for people to think about. Not too much, but that's Josh Dobbs. Jeff, I do a lot of draft prep stuff. I study guys in college. I don't know if you remember what I said before the draft 2 years ago on DKPittsburghSports with Mark Caboli, but I did a whole draft prep on Josh Dobbs before he was drafted. And I said this is the guy. This is the guy that you can get a steal for. No one's going to chase him down. No one's going to jump up and try to pick him early. You can get he's a decent quarterback. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's got a cannon. He's mobile. I think if you put him around some weapons and a good offensive line, he can be a successful NFL quarterback. Sure enough, Steelers pick him. A lot of people hate it. They're mad about it. And I say, no. Give this guy some time. I went at it with Mark Madden about it after his rookie preseason when he beat the Giants in that preseason game. I went at it again with him in this preseason because he thought it was ridiculous that Landry Jones was cut for Josh Dobbs. And then this week when we were on the final word, he brought up he was making fun of like everyone saying, oh yeah, everyone's just praising Josh Dobbs. But I'm like, hey, that kid's tough, man. That guy's he's charismatic. He's a leader. He knows how to play the game. He's a student of the game. He has a good arm, and I think that given time, he could become a serious starter in the NFL. It might not be with the Steelers because I think that he's going to have to battle Mason Rudolph, and I don't know I don't know who would be better in that situation. I still need to see more of them in professional settings, but keep an eye on him, Pittsburgh fans, because also I can tell you from talking to people that meet these players in public, a lot of people say that Josh Dobbs is the best Steeler when he shows up for charity. He does all the things. He's great with kids. I think that guy, he can be a hero of the city, sort of like James Conner is right now, and become something for the future. So don't sleep on him. Go back, if you ever want to see what he can really do, go look up some of his college tape against Florida and see the kind of stuff that he's been able to manipulate safeties with how he's read defenses. So that's my little snippet. I'm not saying he's going to come back and lead the Steelers anytime this year, next year, even the year after, but keep your eye on him. He could be something special. If you want to see more of my work, my name's Christopher Carter. I'm at Carter Critiques on Twitter, but I'm the NFL analyst for DKPittsburghSports.com under the great Dejan Kovacevic. I work with Dale Lally. We'll be at the game tomorrow night at Heinz Field. We'll be talking to players, win or lose. We do our morning Java segments. We also my features are Carter's Classroom, where I'm actually working on right now. We evaluate this. I evaluate the Steelers. I do film study like I used to do for BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. We also have our War Room segment where I grade the Steelers on their performance. I talk about where their scheme fits are, where their top matchups for each game have been. And we break down everything you could need and more as far as film work. By all means, check us out any point in time at DKPittsburghSports.com. But of course, keep checking out Behind the Steel Curtain too. They're a great site. That's where I got my start. I love working with Jeff, and I still read them when I get the chance.
Absolutely. And I will say this before I close the show. If Joshua Dobbs does turn out to be even a potential starter in the NFL for the Steelers, even, that 2017 draft class is looking pretty
Baller.
good. Pretty
Baller.
good.
No. So forget pretty good. Baller. Say it with me now.
Seriously, if you think about it, man, that's TJ Watt, Juju, James Conner, Joshua Dobbs. That's
Cam Sutton.
Yeah. That's incredible.
Not saying those are all Hall of Fame guys, but if you get 5 starters in a draft, you won.
Absolutely.
I know it's not, Lambert, Swan, and Stallworth and Webster all in the same, Donnie Shell and undrafted free agency, but also in the same vein, they got Mike Hilton in that, at the end of that year, undrafted. He'd have been a veteran, but still, sorry, you got me wound up with that. A lot of people tell me that the Steelers don't know how to draft, and I'm like, look at their draft history. Yeah, it's just crazy.
It's a crapshoot. But I will say this: Chris does great work at DKPittsburghSports.com, and if you're a Pittsburgh fan like I am, and I am a subscriber to their site, it is worth the price of admission. You get some really good stuff, especially the Friday Insider. That's by far my favorite column outside of Chris's work. But BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, look. It's a short week. We're jam-packing content in there. We had over 10 articles today. We'll have 10 articles tomorrow, more than that, because it's the game after that. We're talking, if you want Steelers content, there's really no better place to have free content than this. So check out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com for your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers, and make sure you follow us in all our podcast platforms. That's iTunes, Stitch, Art19, Google Play, Spotify. We're everywhere. All you do is type in Steelers. It'll come up. Also, if you didn't know we had a YouTube channel, go to YouTube, search BTSC Steelers Radio, subscribe, like. We appreciate it. Chris, thanks for your time. We'll hopefully hear from you next or soon about the Steelers, hopefully winning and winning a lot. We appreciate your time. We'll see you next week on The Standard is the Standard.